to interview you on the role that the Peace and Security Department is playing to advocate for gender equality. We have 6 questions to ask you. The first one is, the African Union Peace and Security Department has undertaken many steps to advocate for gender equality in their peace operations. Could you briefly outline which these are and why gender mainstreaming is so important for the peace and security in Africa?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's important to note that the issue of gender equality is an integral part of the African Union's mission and vision. We recognize indeed that although the socially constructed roles of men and women allows for leveraging the strength of both sexes, there are instances where it can be inhibiting. In such cases, it is often females who are shortchanged. So whilst we focus on ensuring that all our efforts benefit men and women equally, we are particularly mindful of correcting historical inequities that have come up as a result of gender discrimination. Moreover, the constitutive documents of the organization recognizes that the only way we can create secure and prosperous continent is by ensuring the effective inclusion of all citizens, irrespective of sex. Women indeed constitute a little more than half of the population of the continent. It is therefore untenable to expect that we can succeed at any endeavor without them. So including women in peace and security endeavor is not an option. It is what we must pertain. First, in our view, women must be included because they, like their male counterparts, are professionals who serve in various fields of operations and security, in national armies, police services, as part also of the justice chain, and also as mediators, among others. So a failure to include them in peace and security will amount to discrimination, which goes indeed against the principles of our Constitutive Act and other normative and legal frameworks. Secondly, just as in day-to-day life, some of the issues that need addressing in peace operations, such as prevention of or protection from pursuing justice for gender and sexual-based violence, they are really gender-specific. Sociocultural norms and practices do not go away during times of emergency. In fact, they are often exacerbated. As a result, whilst we need to ensure gender mainstreaming at all times, we perhaps need to pay particular attention to it in such times. In countries with religious and sociocultural prerequisites, we need female police officers to provide escort and body search where appropriate. We need female medical professionals, especially in the fields of gynecological and obstetrical care. However, even in countries without such prerequisite, the evidence shows that females are much more comfortable dealing with other females in matter of gender and sexual-based violence. I also want to immediately add that mainstreaming gender into peace and security is not just about having women participant in our activities. It is also ensuring that we are mindful of the implication and the impact of our legal and normative frameworks, plans and activities on women, men, children, the youth, the aged, and children.
Thank you, Excellency, for this very comprehensive answer. So now we would like to know, what are the steps taken by the African Union to enhance gender mainstreaming in peace operations?
I think the African Union quite honestly, but in a way been also quite modest. But it is important to indicate that the African Union has realized a lot in ensuring that gender is effectively mainstreamed in all of its mandated operations. A number of normative frameworks have been developed that speaks to the broader need for inclusion and gender mainstreaming. It is important to bear in mind that it is not possible to speak of gender mainstreaming in peace operation if gender is not mainstreamed into other processes. So the African Union has, as you know, and I'm sure most of those who follow our activities and our realizations do know that African Union has a framework for the promotion of gender mainstreaming. This included indeed our Constitutive Act, the optional protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women, the gender parity principle, and the Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa. More than that, I think you know that we have devoted a whole year to this issue. And we had, that was one of the themes of our summit. So I think we are really conscious of the fact that having frameworks is only the first step in the efforts to mainstream gender. We have also put in place monitoring mechanisms. So this includes the gender scorecard and the continental result framework. We continue to work with our training centers of excellence and training institutions to increase the pool of women who are trained and deployed through the allotment of at least 30% of all training opportunities to women in most instances. In the field, we continue to strive to meet the gender needs of our female peacekeeper. I must be quick to admit that this is an area where we can do better. Indeed, you remember that in 2014, the former chairperson of the Commission took a bold decision to designate a special envoy on women, peace and security. I think her appointment was meant to advocate for the inclusion of more women in peace processes, but I think to make sure that that this unacceptable behaviors or misbehavior that we see here and there in terms of all violence, including sexual violence against women, are documented, are reported, so that we really imply our zero tolerance policy and take the toughest measures. And here I want to really indicate once more that Chairperson and myself are adamant to be very tough on such misbehaviors. So I think as we speak in our cooperation with UN, and we are now thinking of financing of our activities also through assessed contribution of UN. You know, there are some preconditions for that, and I think this is one area on which we are working in terms of compliance, in terms of discipline, and I think we had already 2 missions of UN who came to Addis, and we are expecting very soon a 3rd one. I think that we are really, we have the resolve and the determination to have the highest standard in terms of not only the inclusion of women in all our activities, but also to protect them for any violence And I think, as you know, these are crimes, and whoever, very wrongly choose to go that route has to know that justice will be always made. There will be no impunity on these issues.
Thank you, Excellency. On the third question is, the African Union is currently engaged in 2 peacekeeping operations. It's peacekeeping missions in Somalia and the joint AU-UN peacekeeping in Darfur, UNAMID. In addition, the AU deploys mediators and other support operations in conflict zones. You have just mentioned, Excellency, the incredible work that the AU Peace and Security Department is doing to train women and making sure that they're part of the solution when it comes to peace and security processes. So why is the participation of women in these particular missions in Somalia and Darfur very important for the peace process?
Well, I think it's just first a question of normal sense. I think, as you know, in AMISOM we have more than 17% of women who are composing our all strength. So in even more when it comes to 2 countries that are Muslim countries with specific traditions, I think that our women peacekeepers have done a marvelous job in terms of reaching out to the families, in terms of protecting young girls, but also youth, even children. I mean, we should not forget that these are also mothers, so who have the experience in dealing with some critical situations. So I think it goes without saying that not only we need women in this 2 deployment, namely AMISOM in Somalia and UNAMID in Darfur, but we need them everywhere in any peace support operation. And that's why to educate them, and indeed I felt really proud of the late initiative that we have taken in promoting 100 young women mediators this year. And I think in next month we'll have the second batch of those young women mediators which will be formed. And I think for this endeavor it's only the starting point. And we hope that now we will use these young women mediators in our missions. Moreover, I think that if you are speaking of mainstreaming gender, but also empowering women, we should not send them on the ground empty-handed. That's why we are thinking of promoting some quick impact projects that can be thought about and carefully engineered, mainly in the issues of communities, health, agriculture for women. And I think whenever these mediators are sent on the ground, hopefully working with our member states, but also with our partners, we can secure finance for these projects, and thereafter really make this woman presence on the ground not only a reality, but as a strong signal of giving hope to those who suffered a lot, to those who lost their, sometimes even I had a very special experience when we visited a region in South Sudan called Ganiel. So we met women, and they already felt that they had a chance, that they made it to the camp. Others did not have that chance. But you can see in their eyes that they are there, but they are not there it was empty. So I think we have to reach out to these people and help them.
So the next question, Excellency, which is if you had a message today to peacekeepers in Africa. We know that peacekeeping missions that are mandated by the UN Security Council with the support of the African Union Peace and Security Department represent over 70–80% of the agenda of the UN Security Council. And that the peacekeepers in Africa, a large amount of them are African men and women, as you have just mentioned, Excellency. So if you had one message to those peacekeepers, men and women, what would it be?
Well, this is maybe the most noble mission that any man or woman can have, because you are engaging in a very difficult environment. Often you don't know what you will be faced with, but definitely you will be faced with some big challenges. So I think it's not an easy decision that you take to participate in such endeavor, but I think I am proud to note that when it comes to fourth generation within the continent, we are the best actually in the world. We can generate forces, including women, within 2 weeks, while it needs for UN 4 months. So this is an indication that most of our women and men are really ready to go and help their sisters and brothers where needed. But more importantly, they accept even to pay the highest price during these operations. And you know that only for Somalia, what we have lost in combat, those who really fall in the line of duty, it's more what you have lost since the Second World War. So you can imagine, I mean, the level of sacrifices. And I am also proud that we are very soon in the Peace and Security Department going to inaugurate a memorial to honor on a perpetual way their sacrifices. And I think in due time we'll inaugurate that memorial.
Thank you, Excellency, very much for the contributions you have shared with us. Thank you, Excellency.